If you're living paycheck to paycheck and never have anything left over to do what you love with the people you love, then you've come to the right place, because by the end of this video, you're going to have several ways to save money on a low-income budget without making major lifestyle changes. Today we're going to be talking about 7 secrets for saving your money on a low-income budget without making major lifestyle changes. Secret 1. Understanding your wants versus your needs. Saving on a low income can be hard. If we're not mindful about where our money is going, it's easy to slip into a paycheck-to-paycheck lifestyle that leaves us with so many expenses today that there's nothing left to save for tomorrow. This is why the first secret to saving on a low income is to understand and identify your wants and needs. Needs are expenses that are mandatory for you to make in order to stay alive and maintain your current income. Example of needs would be things like food, water, shelter, clothing, transportation, and communication. Wants are all other expenses beyond your basic needs. Sometimes even expenses that seem like they would be needs are actually just wants. For example, we all need to wear clothing, but does the clothing need to be Gucci? No. A $2 shirt I have from the thrift store could meet my need to be clothed just as well as a new $1,700 Gucci shirt could. Can you think of any other examples of wants that seem like needs? Let us know in the comments below. So when you're identifying your wants and needs, it's important to ask yourself if you already have something that meets your needs. If you do, then you know that this expense is a want. And there's nothing wrong with spending money on wants. In fact, the whole purpose of saving is to provide us with things we want. But understanding the difference and identifying your own wants and needs will help us find little places where we can make adjustments that will help us have enough money at the end of the month to start saving. In the remainder of this video, we're going to go over 2 examples of wants and 2 examples of needs that have plenty of opportunity for us to save money. And then we'll finish off with 2 new strategies for how to make saving money super simple. Secret number 2, limit your entertainment expenses. After a long week of work, there's nothing better than going out on the weekends and having fun with the people you love. Whether it's going to a movie, a club, a sporting event, a concert, we all love to be entertained. But when we aren't intentional about how often we're going out, the expenses really start to pile up. Dinner, tickets, cost of travel, the drinks, done 2 times a week can really add up over a month. But being entertained with the people you love doesn't have to cost a fortune. There are some simple ways to still have fun with your friends and family without spending an extra dime. For example, instead of going out to the game, you could invite your friends over for a potluck dinner and watch the game at home. Or, instead of going out to a movie and buying popcorn and soda, you could invite your loved ones over, pop some popcorn at home, and have a Netflix marathon. Instead of going out to a painting class, you could host a painting class using a YouTube instructional video. There are lots of opportunities to have a great time with your friends and family without spending a fortune. The only cost is a little bit of creativity. Secret 3, avoid bad debt. If you're serious about saving money, one of the simplest things you can do is avoid bad debt. Now don't be confused, we love good debt, and we'll talk about that in other videos. But to clarify, good debt is debt that will allow you to make more money in the future, whereas bad debt is debt that you don't need that is only going to cost you more in the future. Consumer credit card debt is a great example of bad debt. Many people rack up credit card debt to cover the cost of wants like new furniture, home remodels, new cars, and the latest phone. These are examples of bad debt. Bad debt makes saving hard for 2 reasons. First, there are minimum balances due, which means that until the loan is paid off, you have a payment you have to make every month. Second, you have to pay interest on that loan, which means that the longer you take to pay it off, the more you'll have to pay. So an item that only costs $100 in cash could end up costing $150 by the time it's paid off because of the interest. When it comes to credit card debt, A good rule of thumb is to only go into debt for items that you could afford to pay for in cash. That way, you know you can make the payments, you build your credit, and where possible, avoid paying anything extra in interest. So those are a couple of ways that you can adjust your wants to easily start saving more money every month. Now let's look at a couple of ways that you can adjust the cost of your needs without making major lifestyle changes. Secret 4. Spending wisely on groceries. Did you know that in 2020, the average grocery bill is around $1,000 per month and can even be as high as $4,000 per month? These were findings from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Another 2020 study showed that around 1/3 of all the food produced in the world doesn't get eaten and actually goes to waste. Isn't that crazy? Based on this information, there are a couple of simple things you can do to cut down on the cost of these necessities. First, you could simply plan out a menu for your meals for the week. By having a menu for every meal, you'll already know exactly what items you'll need at the store. This will cut down on impulse purchases. And if we cut down on impulse purchases, we'll most likely stick to our menu, and less of the food that we purchase will end up wasted. Second, you could comparison shop. Sometimes one store will sell a product for $5 and another store will be selling the same thing for $2.99. So there may be stores in your area that you know have better prices than others. In a lot of ways, you can save just by downloading a price matching app and checking it at the register. For example, if you shop at Walmart, they can price match almost any item if you can show that you can get that item for cheaper somewhere else. Along this same line, sometimes there will be two products at a store that are identical in every way, even manufactured at the same factory, that cost different depending on the brand on the label. Name brand products tend to cost significantly more than generic brands, even though the generics are exactly the same product. Lastly, a super simple trick to spending less at the register is to just pay in cash. In a digital world, it's easy to lose track of expenses. If you physically handle the money and go to the store with a set budget, it's much easier to not overspend. Secret 5. Minimizing the cost of your housing. Most likely, housing is one of your greatest expenses. A common personal financing practice is to have your housing expenses account for 35% or less of your overall after-tax income. How does your housing expenses compare to this recommendation? If you're spending more than 35% of your after-tax income on housing, you may want to consider a new housing opportunity that will take a smaller portion of your income. Of all our suggestions, this is the one that could potentially cause the most lifestyle change. But we include it because this is a lifestyle change that is well worth it. However, if you're determined to stay where you are, or you are already in a situation where your housing costs are less than 35% of your total after-tax income, then here are a couple of recommendations. Let's start with what you can do if you rent. Sometimes you can save on your rent by negotiating special deals with your landlord. You could perform a service for them that you would normally get paid for, like doing home maintenance, watching their kids, making them meals, or cleaning for them. You may also be able to negotiate lower prices by signing a long-term lease, or by offering to pay the amount of a lease upfront in cash. Whether you rent or own your home, another option might be to use any extra rooms or structures on the property as short-term rentals through apps like Vrbo or Airbnb. You could also make them long-term rentals. That extra income would be considered passive income and would really help offset the cost of your housing. Plus, if you own your home, the best part is that these tenants would be helping you pay off your greatest asset. Now, let's quickly address two of our favorite strategies for saving money on a low income. If you use these strategies, saving will become easier than you ever expected. You won't even have to think about saving anymore. Secret 6. Use zero-sum budgeting. You may be unfamiliar with this term, but zero-sum budgeting is when you are intentionally spending every single dollar you make, but not in the way you might expect. Zero-sum budgeting involves allocating your income towards each of your expense line items and then allocating the leftover funds to your savings and/or investment accounts. You can also practice zero-sum budgeting by allocating any leftover funds from your current month toward the budget of the next month. Essentially, adding that leftover money to your budget for that next month in particular. For example, let's say you're earning about $3,000 a month after tax at your job. Using the zero-sum budgeting method, you can essentially assign this entire $3,000 towards your monthly expenses like rent, groceries, etc. And then put the rest into either savings, investments, or your next month's budget to completely drain your checking account. The main difference between using non-zero-sum budgeting is that you allocate some of your funds to savings as a separate line item. When you then allocate that $3,000 to their respective line items, part of that income will go into savings, and as long as you stick to your budget, this allocation method will allow you to grow your savings consistently as the months go on. Secret 7. Automating your savings. Of all the suggestions we've made, this strategy is by far the most effective and easiest to start doing. Simply speak with your employer or your HR department and set up automatic deductions from your paychecks to go straight into your savings account. With auto deductions, you'll never see the money. You never have to touch it, and you won't even know it's missing when you get your paycheck. When you set this up, we recommend that you have your employer auto-deduct at least 5%, but preferably 10%. This percentage was first recommended by George Clausen in his classic personal finance allegory, The Richest Man in Babylon. We are huge fans of this book, and you will hear about it often on our channel. But essentially, George noticed that many people pay their expenses first, and by the time they're done, they have nothing left to pay themselves. So in his revolutionary book, he recommended that people pay themselves 10% of their income first, then pay their expenses with whatever they have left over. This has been some of the best advice ever given on the subject of personal finance. Automating your saving deductions makes paying yourself 10% easier than ever. Have you read this book? If not, we highly recommend it. If so, let us know in the comments what your favorite part is. So that's it. These 7 secrets are super easy ways to increase your savings on a low-income budget without making any major lifestyle changes. If you found this helpful, we hope that you'll give this video a like if you haven't already to let us know to make more content like this. Also, I want to personally invite you to consider sharing this video with at least one friend. It would mean the world to us if you would join us in our mission of helping good people like you keep more of what you earn and earn more from what you keep. Okay, with all that said, if you're like us and you're totally committed to obtaining financial independence, then go ahead and tap that like button and let's get into it.